Greetings and salutations, folks. It's I, your host, Cinema Kane, coming back at you today. Today we are talking Rock and Roll High School, or the Ramones movie. I'm a diehard Ramones fan. They're my favorite band of all time. I absolutely love the Ramones. I didn't see Rock and Roll High School until after I became a fan of the Ramones in like my early 20s. And it is a brilliant movie. At the time of recording this, B-movie pioneer, filmmaker, producer Roger Corman has just passed away. This movie was produced and the idea come up with by Roger Corman. Originally, though, the idea, because this movie came out in 1979, originally the idea was Disco High. But someone convinced Corman rock and roll was a better way to go because rock and roll would age better than disco. Hey, look, it did. Not to say that disco music is terrible, but, you know, I definitely prefer rock and roll. In this case, punk rock. They went through a litany of bands trying to figure out what band they could get to agree to do this movie with them. And eventually they settled on the Ramones. This movie has a great soundtrack. I won't get into it right now, but just look up the soundtrack to Rock and Roll High School. It is brilliant. The movie itself is very cheesy, very tongue-in-cheek, so low budget. I mean, very low budget, which, of course, if you're familiar with Roger Corman, then you know that that was his style, was low-budget filmmaking. Rock and Roll High School was co-directed by Alan Arkish, who got the actual directing credit on it, and Joe Dante, who would later go on to make Gremlins and The Burbs and so many classic movies that I absolutely love. But again, that speaks to who Roger Corman was. Without Roger Corman, we don't get a James Cameron, we don't get a Martin Scorsese, we don't get a Ron Howard. These are all directors, just to name a few, that Corman helped get their start. The thing about Rock and Roll High School that I still love to this day is it is definitely a movie you could not get made today, for a couple of reasons. One of the biggest ones is the fact that at the end of the movie, they blow up the high school. Now granted, there's no one in the high school, but still, they blow up the high school. It's got a who's who of young Hollywood for the time in it. You got PJ Soles, who of course was in Carrie and Halloween and would later go on to be in Stripes with Bill Murray. She plays our lead, Riff Randall, #1 fan of the Ramones. You of course have the four Ramones themselves, in this case Marky having just taken the place of Tommy, their original drummer. And then you've got Ron Howard's younger brother, Clint. And then you've got Vince Van Patten, who, of course, is the son of Dick Van Patten, who you might know from 8 is Enough or Spaceballs. I'm a huge fan of Rock and Roll High School. I love this movie. I think it's so great. I mean, the head of the school, Miss Togar, the principal, may as well be a goose-stepping certain kind of fascist from the 1940s, if you know what I mean, and her two right-hand teenagers that are her hall monitors look like they are a certain kind of youth from that same time period. If you're a fan of the Ramones and you haven't seen Rock and Roll High School, you owe it to yourself to see it. If you've never seen a Roger Corman movie, maybe this is the one to try and wet your feet with. I'm your host, Cinema Kane. I hope you enjoyed this review of Rock and Roll High School. If you did, don't forget to click like. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to click that bell notification so you know every time Cinema Kane has a new video uploaded. And don't forget to share this on all your social media platforms in an effort to help me grow my channel. And I'll see you next time at the video store.